All right, here's another bit of recommendations. A little bit late to the game, but hopefully in time for people to make some good picks. So there's also a sale going on for Warner Archive right now. So I'm just going to go through some of the best. So I'm actually going to start from some of the newest, go all the way back. So if you're new to Warner Archive, the newest releases, I think usually the last couple of months, are not part of the sale, but they are. There is a discount code right now that gives you 15% off, which makes it on par with getting from Amazon. Plus, you're getting it without Amazon. So, among the brand new titles, there's a reprint of What's Opera Doc, The Great Caruso, which apparently I didn't know this, but it was apparently one of the highest grossing films of its year. I think 1950 or 51. I think. The Bermuda Depths, Isle of the Dead, which is a Val Lewton horror film. Reprint of Driving Miss Daisy, Damn Yankees, which is a new 4K scan. Crossfire, pretty notable noir. I hear a lot of good things about it. And that's a RKO noir. I think that's also 4K. Six by Sondheim, the 51 Showboat, which is a Technicolor restoration. Although I think this is out of stock on the site, so you'd have to get it through Amazon or something. San Francisco, which I've heard some interesting things about, especially Clark Gable, Jeanette MacDonald, Spencer Tracy. Sounds interesting. Pump Up the Volume, Harley Quinn, which I will admit I'm not really that familiar with a lot of the DC or animation stuff on this, other than the theatrical cartoons. So just bear with me on that. Elia Kazan's Baby Doll, and then a couple of musicals, On the Moonlight Bay and My Dream Is Yours. So now we get into the titles that are eligible. So most of the titles from here on are eligible, but there's a few multi-disc sets and TV shows and so on that are not part of the sale, but they're still worth getting. I'll point those out as I go. So a lot of these films I'm really not familiar with, so I don't really have anything to say. So I'll just talk over the ones that either I decided to pick up or will pick up, and stuff I've heard good things about. So, of course, you have Room for One More with Cary Grant and Betsy Drake. That looks like that could be okay, but not really my thing. Good News is another three-strip Technicolor restoration. I did get After the Thin Man, which is the first sequel to The Thin Man. And apparently it's a little bit more of a comedy, so I'm kind of looking forward to seeing that. There's the 30s version of A Tale of Two Cities that looks interesting. I did get Young Man with a Horn, which is directed by Michael Curtiz, starring Kirk Douglas and Lauren Bacall and Doris Day, and that's enough to get me interested. Now, this is one that I have seen, The Shop Around the Corner, starring James Stewart and Margaret Sullivan. Wonderful Ernst Lubitsch comedy, really worth seeing. There's also John Huston's The Man Who Would Be King with Sean Connery, Michael Caine, Christopher Plummer. And I saw that once. I don't really remember much about it, but I know that's a really popular. Now that's actually a reprint that was released through the main Warner Brothers a while ago. So another three-strip Technicolor. This is Judy Garland in the Harvey Girls. There's the first real Hammer horror film, The Curse of Frankenstein, which is a new 4K restoration, I think. But it has three different versions, for three different aspect ratios. It's supposed to be a huge improvement over the British release that was supposedly pretty bad. There's also a reprint of The Best Years of Our Lives, directed by William Wyler. I just got this last year. It was a good price on Amazon, but this is a great film. It's pretty unflinching, I think, in post-war trauma, but it's really worth seeing. It's William Wyler, shot by Greg Toland, top-notch cast. What is it? Dana Andrews, Frederick March, Myrna Loy, Teresa Wright, Virginia Mayo. There's also two volumes of Tex Avery, so this is the second volume. Now, some of the cartoons have some odd digital anomalies if you pause through them and stuff. And I personally think they probably should have fixed this, but most people will never notice any of the issues, and they look the cartoons generally look jaw-dropping. They're way better than anything you've seen in the past. There's also Mr. Roberts, which is directed by John Ford and Mervyn LeRoy. Shot in CinemaScope. It is one of those films you thought would never have a really good Blu-ray. The DVD looked a little bit rough for the time. It does have the original CinemaScope 4-track mix. It has a 5.1 track. Look at that. Henry Fonda, James Cagney, William Powell, Jack Lemmon. That's a hell of a cast. There's It Happened at Fifth Avenue is a film that really hasn't been on my radar, but I hear about it a lot now, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. Apparently, that was the very first movie produced by Allied Artists after I think they started as Monogram, but that's a supposedly a pretty good holiday movie. The Pirate, which is in three-strip Technicolor, Judy Garland, Gene Kelly. Libel Lady, I got just for the cast, which is Jean Harlow, William Powell, Merlin Alloy, and Spencer Tracy. And Holiday Affair looks pretty interesting. It's kind of a holiday comedy with romantic comedy with Robert Mitchum. Always up for that. Oh, and Janet Leigh, I think. Yeah. Yep. Let's skip over some of these because I'm not familiar. We'll see. The individual copies, it's about the same price, so it's not marked down, but this has Suspicion, The Wrong Man, I Confess, Dial M for Murder, which has 2D and 3D versions. That is worth having. I would imagine a lot of people already have the singles. Of these films, though, I they're not really top tier, depending on who you ask. But I will say the 3D and Dial M for Murder is terrific if you have a setup for 3D. Of course, and it's Hitchcock, of course. Let's see what we got here. I did get Gary Cooper in Sergeant York because it was directed by Howard Hawks. I have yet to see a Howard Hawks film I wasn't incredibly impressed with. And that's entertainment. I just got it at a used bookstore for about $10. I don't know if it's worth this much. It doesn't really hold up in terms of video quality today, but because it's like a very early Blu-ray that's just been reprinted a couple times. But if you're into clip shows, pretty good. Let's see what we got. Jeremiah Johnson. This is another reprint, directed by Sidney Pollack, Robert Redford. I remember my father watching this on TV a lot. So, and Flying the Leathernecks is Technicolor with John Wayne, Robert Ryan, directed by Nicholas Ray. I honestly don't remember anything, even though I saw it on TCM. So, I've heard that Drop Dead Gorgeous is a fairly popular movie, so a lot of people are probably looking for that. I don't know anything about it. Now, one that I would 100% recommend is The Big Parade, which is so far the only true silent released on Blu-ray by Warner Brothers so far. Great World War One film with John Gilbert and Renee Adoree, directed by King Vidor. The restoration, I think it was a full 4K restoration, has an orchestral soundtrack score from Carl Davis that was recorded for the British TV. So this is probably one of the top recommendations I'd say so far. And that's actually a reprint. It was originally released on as a digibook, but this has the same disc and everything. There's Kentucky Colonels, which I've never seen a Wheeler and Woolsey comedy, but I thought it's an interesting one to try out. There's also a couple of Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn films. I know there's Without Love and Pat and Mike. I haven't seen those, but I know they have their fans. We've got some film noir here. If you have the Criterion, the Asphalt Jungle, and getting this, you basically replicate a their first film noir box set released on DVD many, many, many years ago. These are all beautiful restorations, excellent noirs. Murder My Sweet probably didn't really impress me as much, but Gun Crazy, Out of the Past, and The Setup are all just absolutely essential. Million Dollar Mermaid, 3-strip Technicolor. They've really been doing a lot of Technicolor lately. And that's, I'm trying to think, is that the one that had Tom and Jerry in it? I'm not sure. So, what else we got here? There's a reprint of House of Wax, which is in 3D. It also has Mystery of the Wax Museum as an extra, but it's standard definition. So I would actually recommend, and this is a one of the all-time great 3D movies. So even if you can't see it in 3D, it is a terrific film. Really, really worth seeing with Vincent Price. And I would also get, I'm going to skip around. Mystery of the Wax Museum is the original 30s version shot in two color Technicolor, not two strip, two color Technicolor. This is a full 4K restoration, as is House of Wax, but you do have to get these separately to get the best version of each. So this does not include House of Wax. It's an extra. The other one does include Mystery of the Wax Museum as an extra, but it's standard definition from really old transfer. It looks pretty awful. And this thriller collection, I'd actually recommend getting if you're into. I would say Innocent Blood is an underrated John Landis film. Body Snatchers, I think, is a great uh, retelling of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, directed by Abel Ferrara. The Hunger by Tony Scott, Wolfen by Michael Wadley. These are all quality horror films. If you don't have the singles, this is a pretty good deal. It's practically the same price individually. So, and I sort of want to see this. Hans Christian Andersen, Danny Kaye. I really enjoy his 40s movies. And The Court Jester, I think, is one of the funniest movies from the classic era. Let's see what else we got. I did get this pair of Robert Mitchum films, Rachel and the Stranger and Blood on the Moon. Both of those look like a lot of fun, and I think one, if not both of them, were directed by Robert Wise. So definitely up for that. What else we got here? There's also a reprint of Tom and Jerry Golden Collection Volume 1. Only caveat is these are kind of from prints all over the place. They didn't really put the same quality as the Tex Avery or Popeye sets, but still worth it. If you really want to see Tom and Jerry, especially for the price, it's pretty good. There's also Toddsworth, which is a 4K restoration by the Film Foundation. And this is a who directed? Oh, William Wyler directed this based on the Sinclair Lewis novel, starring Walter Houston. Really worth seeing. It's a wonderful film, and it's never had a decent release in the history of home video. This is the first time it's actually looked good. So, and there's the first volume of Tex Avery. Both of them are absolutely worth getting. There's a reprint of Guys and Dolls. And you probably noticed there's a lot of reprints. A lot of these, when they're going out of print through the mainline Warner Brothers, they go to the archive, but they're at least using nice poster art. What else we got here? So you can see a lot of Teen Titans, stuff like that. We got their friends. And this is Vincent Minnelli's The Bad and the Beautiful with Lana Turner, Kirk Douglas, Walter Pidgeon, and Dick Powell. This is one of the all-time great noirs, but also about filmmaking. This is one of the best. I would say another one of the big essentials from Warner Archives. So very worth seeing, I think. And there's also Blake Edwards' Days of Wine and Roses. There's I actually haven't gotten around to seeing this yet, but I really, really do want to see it. And I wasn't impressed with Mr. Nice Guy with Jackie Chan. Uh, I think Sammo Hung directed it. It's okay. It's not as good as the two Police Story movies, from what I've seen, but it still has its fans. And this actually has the American cut as well as I think the international cut or something like that. So it actually has two versions on there, some extras. And oh, and by the way, Days of Wine and Roses has Jack Lemmon and Lee Remick, so very worth seeing. And what do we got here? There's the setup again. It's Robert Wise with Robert Ryan. Great film noir. And this actually has a commentary by, I think, Martin Scorsese with interviews with Robert Wise. So really worth seeing. William Wyler's The Letter with Betty Davis. I haven't gotten around to seeing this yet, but I've heard nothing but good things about it. And here we have third volume of 40s Popeye color cartoons. These look fantastic. Yeah, they're not exactly as good as the Fleischer cartoons of the 30s, but they're at least fun. And I know a lot of fans of these cartoons. really enjoy the animation. So yeah, they might be a little bit repetitive, but they're still interesting and they're really worth it just for the outstanding restorations on these. Here's a film that I think is pretty underrated. It is My Favorite Year, directed by Richard Benjamin, I think, and it's loosely based on I think a night where Errol Flynn appeared on Your Show of Shows, which is the comedy show that Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner worked on. And this is Peter O'Toole in sort of an Errol Flynn type role, and he's magnificent in this. So I think this is really underrated comedy. It's not a masterpiece, but it's still worth it. I mean, any movie with Peter O'Toole is worth it, of course. And there's Roman Polanski's The Fierce Vampire Killers. Oh my, little um, Freudian slip there. The Fearless Vampire Killers. This is the director's cut, but it does have the American release bookends as an extra in HD on this. I thought this was an interesting horror movie, although I think a lot of the best parts were repurposed for Mel Brooks' Dracula Dead and Loving, which I wish had a Blu-ray. Kiss Me Kate in 3D, and that's one of the three 3D classics that Warner Brothers has released and reissued, along with there's Dial M for Murder by Alfred Hitchcock. This is a great film, worth seeing. I know a lot of fans of, there's a lot of fans of V, the miniseries. There's Nicholas Roeg's last film. Oh wait, no, not his last film. The last, I think the last film that Jim Henson worked on, but The Witches. And I love this as a kid, and it's great to finally have a good copy of it. The DVD was pan and scan, and everything was not very good. There's William Wyler's Jezebel, and with Betty Davis again. This was a fun movie. It's not great, but I do think it's fun, at least for Betty Davis. It kind of Gone with the Wind light, and it's actually came out a year before Gone with the Wind. Fritz Lang's Moonfleet, which I haven't seen, but I do want to. I've I've always been impressed with Fritz Lang's films. Robert Aldrich's Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. This is a reprint as well. Originally had a digibook, I think, with Betty Davis, Joan Crawford. This is a great movie, fun. John Ford's Wagon Master, which is, of course, if it's John Ford, it's essential. The First Thin Man, which looks amazing. I never thought it would have a decent quality edition like this. Footlight Parade is one of my all-time favorites from Warner Archive. This is such a fun movie. It's like half screwball comedy, half Busby Berkeley musical. Has James Cagney in it, Joan Blondell, Ruby Keeler, Dick Powell. Just a lot of fun, and pretty much the whole soundtrack is made up of songs you probably heard in a lot of Looney Tunes. There's also a reprint of A Streetcar Named Desire. We have another Popeye volume, Johnny Quest, the 40s remake of Gaslight, which I think BFI in the UK released the 40s UK version. This is the American remake. I think it has the UK cut in SD in standard definition as an extra. But this is a good movie. I think the original might be slightly better. It does have, I think it has, I know it has Anton Walbrook, but still worth seeing. And let's see here. Probably skipping over some stuff. And I would say, even though it's not on sale, The Jazz Singer is really worth seeing. The Blu-ray has the film on it from a 4K remaster. Looks and sounds better than it ever has been before, but I think it's a really significant film, and I really think that it has a good story. It's not really a masterpiece, but Al Jolson really is terrific in it, and this actually has two extra DVDs full of documentaries and extra Vitaphone shorts that have been restored. So really, we're seeing it's a very historical sort of thing, but I would definitely get it. And another essential, The Thing from Another World. This is the original cut. Looks better than it ever has before. Produced by Howard Hawks. And if you're a fan of the John Carpenter remake, which I am, both are absolutely worth seeing. And Cleopatra Jones is a lot of fun. It's a fun little blaxploitation movie, and I think one of the highlights is Shelley Winters is the villain, and she goes into full maniac mode in that. And what else we got? Seahawk is a swashbuckler with Errol Flynn and Brenda Marshall. Claude Rains is also in it, directed by Michael Curtiz. And this is actually a film that I don't think it was released on DVD, but this actually is the full length version. They actually had to reconstruct it from a couple of different sources. But overall, fun. This is a really fun movie. There is Horror of Dracula, the British one with Christopher Lee, and just like Curse of Frankenstein, it's a full 4K restoration. This doesn't really have that many extras. I don't think it has any extras actually, but it is the best visually out there in the world. Robert Altman's Brewster McCloud. That is worth seeing. It's a very strange movie, but I enjoyed it. And there's a reprint of Cabaret by Bob Fosse. This is a great film, and it's a full restoration. Apparently, the negative got junked for whatever reason in the 70s, but you'd never know from seeing the Blu-ray. And I think this only had a non-anamorphic DVD from a Laserdisc master, so it's a pretty significant upgrade from what you've seen in the past. And there's also a double feature of Batman Mask of the Phantasm and Sub-Zero. These are also available separately, but they're also in the complete animated series as well. So I would say that most fans probably got the complete series, but it is available a couple other ways. There's a reprint of Papillon with Steve McQueen, Dustin Hoffman. That's I remember that being a movie that I saw on TV a lot as a kid. Probably not the best kid viewing. Let's see what else we got here. John Huston's Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean with Paul Newman. Uh, I always find Huston to be worth seeing. Billy Budd by Peter Ustinov. Sergio Leone's first film, Colossus of Rhodes. So if you're a completist, I haven't gotten around to seeing this yet, but I would say that it's the first Sergio Leone film, so a little bit significant. And I would say Superfly, I thought was a terrific film. I actually liked it more than Shaft, and it has a great soundtrack by Curtis Mayfield, and this stars Ron O'Neal. I thought this was a terrific film. And Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, which I remember seeing on TCM before and finding it fun, directed by Stanley Donen. And this actually has both the CinemaScope and flat widescreen versions. There's Meet Me in St. Louis, which is a reprint, I think, and full restorations. These are Gun Crazy, which is Joseph Lewis noir. This is one of the most essential. I think this is one of the best noirs ever made. Fritz Lang's While the City Sleeps, which that has a pretty stacked cast, and he also directed Beyond Reasonable Doubt, which I haven't heard as many good things about. But While the City Sleeps looks pretty worthwhile. Both of these have Dana Andrews. This also has who was in this? Wow, Dana Andrews, Art Fleming, George Sanders, Vincent Price, Thomas. Wow, that's a stacked cast. There's also the Black Scorpion, which I think Ray Harryhausen worked on. Yeah. What else we got here? The Hanging Tree is a really underrated Western. Was it with yeah, Gary Cooper, Maria Schell, Carl Malden, George C. Scott's also in it. I think it was directed by, oh, I forgot who directed it. And we also have a double feature of the extended TV cut and the special edition cut of Superman the movie. And what's interesting about this is if you have the UHD 4K edition, which only has the theatrical cut, getting this and the UHD pretty much gets you all the available cuts of the film. So pretty good for completists. I'm happy with the theatrical cut, but this does compile all the other cuts and extras. Yeah, let's see. I'm probably skipping over some stuff that people love. The Green Slime is a fun little Japanese American co-production. Has a really bizarre opening song, but this has a lot of fans. The Sea Wolf, which is another Michael Curtiz film, Edward G. Robinson, Ida Lupino, John Garfield. Uh, this is another one that had to be reconstructed from a couple different sources, but it looks and sounds great. Really great movie. There's a Christopher Guest mockumentary, Waiting for Guffman, which I thought was a lot of fun. Innocent Blood, I think, is a really underrated John Landis film. It's a comedy horror. If you ever wanted to see Robert Loggia and Don Rickles as vampires, this is your chance. And see, a lot of these are probably big cult favorites. Joe versus the Volcano, which I remember liking as a kid. The Loved One is a really strange movie. It has a little bit of everything, but I would say that what is it? It has Robert Morse. It also has Jonathan Winters as a creepy reverend, but also I think he plays another pole. Rod Steiger plays a mortician. This is one of the strangest movies to come out of that time, but it was directed by I think Tony Richardson and Heskel Wexler and Hal Ashby worked on it as well. So it's got some interesting things about it. Sam Peckinpah's Ballad of Cable Hogue. I did want to see 7 Days in May. It's a John Frankenheimer political conspiracy movie that's always, and this is one of the great neo noirs. I think Arthur Penn directed it. Gene Hackman. This is a terrific neo noir, and it's just one of those films I think that a lot of people would enjoy. And I think this is Sam Peckinpah's one of his first films, Ride the High Country. Randolph Scott and Joel McCrea. I thought this was a terrific Western. And what do we got here? Love in the Afternoon by Billy Wilder with Gary Cooper, Audrey Hepburn, Maurice Chevalier. Francis Ford Coppola's Finian's Rainbow, which apparently doesn't have a lot of fans, but Fred Astaire. This, I think, has a commentary by Coppola, but I don't remember it being that good. Donald Camel's Demon Seed, which is a really strange film. I don't know if I want to recommend it or not, but it is interesting at least. There's Ken Russell's The Boyfriend, which is a I thought it was interesting, and the Blu-ray looks phenomenal. Let's see. There's Abel Ferrara's Body Snatchers, John Sturge's Bad Day at Black Rock. If you ever wanted to see Spencer Tracy, Karate Chop, Ernest Borgnine, uh, it's a fun little. It's not even that long, I think, but it's a fun kind of Western noir, and it all takes place in one day, I think. So really worth seeing. There's Nick Myers' Time After Time with Malcolm McDowell as H.G. Wells, David Warner as Jack the Ripper. Also has Mary Steenburgen. I think this is a fun little sci-fi movie. On Dangerous Ground, I wasn't as impressed with, but it is a Nicholas Ray noir with Ida Lupino, Robert Ryan, has a Bernard Herrmann score. Really worth seeing if you're really into noir. Oh, and let's see here. And I think we're getting, let's see. Another Howard Hawks film, To Have and Have Not. John Ford's They Were Expendable. Got Bogart and Bacall and To Have and Have Not. You have Robert Montgomery, John Wayne, and John Ford's They Were Expendable. I haven't actually seen that yet. There's another John Ford. She Wore a Little Yellow Ribbon with John Wayne, and that's in Technicolor. So that's certainly interesting. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which I think was Mike Nichols' first film. This is a great film, just for the acting. I think it's really worth seeing. Key Largo, which I think is John Huston, Bogart, Bacall, Edward G. Robinson, The Big Sleep, Jets, Howard Hawks. Bogart and Bacall again. And this actually has both cuts, but the preview cut, I believe, is standard definition only, unfortunately. So, Cat on a Hunt and Roof, though, is probably one of the horniest 50s movies I've seen. Has Elizabeth Taylor, Paul Newman, Burl Ives. This is a great film, and the Blu-ray looks and sounds terrific. Hitchcock's Suspicion with Cary Grant and John Fontaine. Christopher Guest, A Mighty Wind. Another Hitchcock, The Wrong Man, and I Confess. Frank Tashlin directed Susan Slept Here, and I think this is a fun little movie. It is quite bright in colors, so I would say that's worth seeing. And a lot of the aforementioned Murder My Swede by, I think that's Edward Dmytryk. Tony Scott's The Hunger, that has Catherine Deneuve. David Bowie, Susan Sarandon, Dark Passage. I forget who directed Dark Passage, but that's interesting because I think the first act of the film is in first person, like it's Bogart's perspective, which is kind of interesting. 42nd Street, which is a Busby Berkeley dance musical, which I think Footlight Parade's better, but this is still pretty essential. Uh, let's see here. Picture of Dorian Gray, I think, is a really effective kind of horror movie. It has some surprises that I don't really want to spoil, but let's just say that it's not 100% black and white. Blake Edwards' The Great Race, which this is a really nice Blu-ray, but I think it's pretty funny. It's pretty silly, kind of in the vein of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. And Yankee Doodle Dandy is the other 1942 classic by Michael Curtiz, James Cagney. This is a wonderful movie. Out of the Past is, I think, Jacques Tourneur, Robert Mitchum, Jane Greer, and I think Kirk Douglas is also in this. Yeah. And what else we got? Performance is the first film of Donald Cammell and Nicholas Roeg. Really bizarre film. I think I really like it. It's a really strange film, but it's very interesting. And the Americanization of Emily, I remember that being an interesting film. And we're getting the oldest one. So, and there's the Hudsucker Proxy, which was one of the first releases through Warner Archive on Blu-ray. It's not a full remaster though, so it doesn't really hold up as well. But if you're a fan of the film, it's very worth seeing. So, and I will say there's a lot of stuff that's still DVD only. And if I had to recommend anything that's DVD only still, I would say the main ones would be things like their silent films, any kind of short films, animation, stuff like that, because all of that, who knows when that's going to get a Blu-ray release. But anyways, there is some recommendations, and hope that helps. All right.